start their stories. And the end of writing workshop, by the end of the 12 weeks, was writing a book and I don't know how many of you worked with first graders? Quite a few, yeah, good. So, as you can imagine, the picture is a lot more important than the words. So in the book there were these nice pictures, and then maybe just a few words that they were able to write about that picture. And that was fine. It's kind of developmentally appropriate that there's lots and lots of pictures in their book. Oh, well, just one comment about the book. The reason why the book is important is that it's published. So in order to publish your book, you have to edit it and revise it and rewrite it. So the book went through at least one rewrite. And, what is the rewrite about? It's about improving the handwriting. So that they had to make their handwriting even more perfect to be published and put on in the hallway on the wall. So here's something critical, and as you move forward in your practice and you're wanting to partner with a speech therapist or the teacher or the physical therapist, you really have to plan together. You have to have a time built into your week when you're going to sit down and review what happened. How'd it go this week? Oh, I'm worried about John. He was not engaged. And truthfully, this is the truth. We did talk a lot about behavior because that often is what interferes with students' learning. And that's okay. And teachers would have suggestions and we would have suggestions. Maybe they would try a sensory strategy. Maybe we need to rearrange the table and put John next to Sue because Sue is quieter and Sue might be more supportive. So we reviewed together, we planned together, and that's where we really integrated our service. And you have to step back. I was talking to this group of students where they are planning and working with teachers, and you have to kind of say, well, can you do that part? Okay, I will do this part. Can you do this part so that it becomes more of a real partnership? And then we just had forms that we recorded our review and our planning. So here's what it looked like. I want to give you a picture of what our program worked like. So Terry was up at the smart board, and then this, I don't know if you can see, Sandy is using a whiteboard, and she's closer to the students. And the reason why is we know that some students who have some ocular motor problems need more of a close model versus a far model. Not true for all students, but we just thought it'd be another way to reinforce learning. I will tell you, there was a little bit of a problem with this, because have you ever held up a whiteboard and written a letter? You got to write it backwards. You have to, I couldn't even do it, but you have to think backwards and be able to write that way and tell. Sandy actually was quite talented, although I think we had a Z problem. So then when they were writing, they would just use these words, start at the top. All letters start at the top. Did you know that? And it's an important thing to remember. And emphasize basement letters. So let me, here's our sequence. This is the order that we taught the letters, and it makes sense. We also, like Handwriting Without Tears, started with Magic C, and then went to the more complicated letters. A diagonal is a pretty difficult thing to do. So Terry would model and talk to the kids. Let me see if this little clip works to show Terry in action. Where's the... Very low. Can you hear that? Let me just get some the volume because there's some other clips. See if my volume is low. That's my strategy. My students help me with all my technology issues. I increase my volume.
Okay, so today we're going to learn the letters.
A little better.
Okay? So I want you to think about, when you're writing these letters, I want you to think about going down the slide every time. None of you guys went down the slide. Yeah, so when you go down the slide, you go down the slide like this. Look where you go. Still goes once. And then when you go back up the ladder, line back up that way too. Right? That makes a B. That's right. So I want you to think, but if you think about, if you're on the slide like this, long, back up. Ooh, that's not quite right. Sideways. So when you make a B, now B's tall ways or small? You think. The tall, what does that make a B is tall? What kind of a B is that? It's a capital uppercase. That's right. So we're doing more. So we want to make it smaller. So start making it small. We want to start right here. And I go look. Eyes up here. And remember, you can watch this tape or Mr. Kelly can say what. Don't go once. Walk the line. Line back up. Put that line again. Back up the line.
So are the kids engaged? Yeah. And one of the things really that was great was the kids love the handwriting instruction. And I don't know if you know other first graders. Most kids really don't like handwriting instruction. So we were happy that the children really enjoyed the program. So then comes practice, and we work and give specific feedback. Of course, it's positive. We try to find what they've done well and guide them by complimenting them on doing well. But if they're not getting it, it's an opportunity to sit there and model again for them and have them maybe. We didn't do a lot of tracing. Tracing isn't all that effective of a learning method because it doesn't have the children think about the form and shape as much as copying. So we tried to stay with copying rather than tracing. And then the handwriting was also emphasized in the workshop. And one of the things, this is where working with the teachers was just great because the kids write every day. And if the teacher has the same language that we've been using and knows the expectation, they can make many more comments about, now, is that supposed to be a basement letter or is that supposed to sit on the line? And reinforcing just what they know that children have learned on Tuesday and Thursday is when we ran our handwriting instruction. And then we really used peers. We encouraged them to share papers. We encouraged them to look at what their neighbor was doing and to see how to write the letter. We did as much as we could to support peer modeling and peer interaction during the small groups, which is what I just said there. So typically after the children practice the letters, we would say, now why don't you pass your paper to the child next to you or to your peer and ask them to circle your best letter. And they really took that to heart. They were looking, and then after they circled, they would say, I think this is your best letter, but here's another good one. And they just thought that was lots and lots of fun to share their work with another child next to them. The only thing is sometimes they got in a rush because they wanted to do the share part, and we tried to slow them down. Now, what about the interventions? So there were kids, and Joey was one of them, and actually both those kids were on IEPs that you are in the center there. And they both needed some interventions, but we just literally embedded it in the group. So Joey used a slant board, and the letters, he used paper where the lines were a little bit further apart because he made bigger letters at this point. And then the child next to him had lots of attention issues, and we kind of hovered around her with a little more cueing and prompting. She did sit on a cushion, just more to kind of help her remember where she was supposed to be with her bottom in that chair. We really worked hard mostly with verbal praise and prompting to keep her in place and engaged. But here are some other kinds of interventions we embedded. Lots of pencil grips. We used raised line paper, so there was an extra tactile cue of where to put the letter. We used slant boards. Actually, I think Joey was the only one with a slant board. So it wasn't a lot of children. I would say 5 to 6 of the children had a specific intervention, often just a pencil grip. Or we also used the Spaceman letter spacer to help them once they were writing more words. Some of the kids needed a word spacer. It just gives you, do you know what a spaceman? So it's a popsicle stick that looks like an astronaut or spaceman. It could look like a monster. It could look like anything. Oh, it's a spaceman because it's for spaces. That's why. So you say, get your spaceman to help you. So then they would just, write a word, and then they'd lay spaceman down, and they'd know where to start the next word. See, don't you want to work in the schools now? Come on, think about it. Could be right for you. So I already explained how we organized our small groups. So now I'm going to give you an example of some of the small groups. The sensory motor group, which, and this is kind of / motor planning, was a lot about just developing isolated finger movement, better hand coordination, lots of opportunities for sensory feedback, including mostly more about force. So this would be helping children apply the right force when they're writing, develop strength. Lots of repetitive work in this kind of, one of the things that happen, lessons learned when you get to do something like this is we started to develop these elaborate activities. Like we would make waffle sandwiches, and there would be cutting waffles and spreading whipped cream and putting food coloring, and it was the funnest activity. But you know what? These groups go for 8 minutes. So if you're not done in 8 minutes with your activity, it's a big problem. And so it was huge because they're like, oh, I'm not done. And then, so we learned you can't really do a nice activity. You have to do something repetitive where they are finding pennies in their Play-Doh. And it's, there's any place could be an end because they have to transition. So here we are working, just so much interaction between teachers and students, and that just doesn't happen on an ordinary day. And so here is the best first grade teacher in the world. He's so gentle and nice and kind and sweet and funny. So funny. First graders have a great sense of humor and need to tap into that. Here's some things we made. Appleman, which was folding, which is a lot of motor planning and fine motor. And then